Karoline Leavitt dropped a disgusting bomb. I mean, truly putrid stuff during yesterday's press briefing. She was asked, do you have any actual justification for suggesting that the reason Pete Hegseth is potentially in trouble is because the entire Pentagon has turned against him in a concerted effort to rid themselves of him as Secretary of Defense? Do you have anything that you can say to justify that? She doesn't. She doesn't.
I appreciate it. I have two questions, one on the Pentagon and another on the economy. You said on Fox News that the entire Pentagon is working against Secretary Hegseth, but the people who were fired were Hegseth's own guys. So how do you square that, and what do you say to concerns that that's bad management?
They were Pentagon employees who leaked against their boss to news agencies in this room, and it's been clear since day one from this administration that we are not going to tolerate individuals who leak to the mainstream media, particularly when it comes to sensitive information. And the Secretary of Defense is doing a tremendous job, and he is bringing monumental change to the Pentagon. And there's a lot of people in this city who reject monumental change, and I think, frankly, that's why we've seen a smear campaign against the Secretary of Defense since the moment that President Trump announced his nomination before the United States Senate. Let me reiterate, the president stands strongly behind Secretary Hegseth in the...
Of course, and he will stand strongly behind him until he stands behind him in order to give him a kick in the ass out of the Department of Defense, which is likely going to happen soon. So, of course, no actual evidence. And then, were these staffers fired or did they quit? Confusion with regard to that as well. They then get to the topic of the Fed and Fed Chairman Jay Powell. Karoline Leavitt insists that Jay Powell is acting in a political manner rather than doing what is right for the American economy. Powell, of course, has insisted he is not going to be influenced by political actors, and he is going to do what he believes is best for the American economy. Meanwhile, remember that Donald Trump totally backtracked yesterday on firing Jay Powell and said, oh, no, it's never something I was thinking of. But listen to the rhetoric from Leavitt about Jay Powell here.
I'll have to ask him, and I'll get back to you, Phil.
Thank you, Caroline.
You're welcome. John.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. Some economic questions for you. Kevin Hassett has been a key economic advisor to the president in both of his terms. In 2022...
And he still is.
And he still is.
He was just in my office.
Absolutely. In 2022, he said that the independence of the Fed is super important. That's a direct quote. Is that something that the president subscribes to? Does he still believe in the independence of the Federal Reserve?
Well, look, I think the president has made his position on the Fed and on Powell quite clear. The president believes that they have been making moves and taking action in the name of politics rather in the name of what's right for the American economy. The president has the right to express his displeasure with the Fed, and he has the right to say he believes interest rates should be lower. He believes Americans should be able to borrow money cheaper than they currently are right now. And I also spoke to Kevin Hassett about the Fed as well, and he has called into question the Fed's independence and whether they are actually doing things, again, out of the best interest of the economy, or are they doing it for partisan reasons. The president wants to see interest rates lower. He has made that quite clear.
We've also seen, if I may...
Understand that Trump wants interest rates lower for political reasons. And what Jay Powell has said is he's not going to move interest rates around for political reasons, that the Fed, as an independent agency, will use economic metrics, not the desires of the president of the United States, to determine when interest rates need to move. Now, we can all have opinions about what the federal funds rate should be. Some of our opinions may be more versus less informed, sure. But this is overtly a contradiction when she is saying that Trump has expressed that he wants interest rates to be lower. That is the position of a political actor for political reasons. Jay Powell is not going to use that to determine what the federal funds rate should be. And of course, Trump realizing that this was not helping the stock market. And so that's why yesterday he backed off of the idea that he would be potentially firing Jay Powell. Now, finally, Karoline Leavitt was asked, people have been getting warned in other countries about traveling to the United States. Do you have a message for those people who may not travel to the United States as a result of this? And you'll notice she doesn't actually answer, and she just says the U.S. is an awesome place to do business.
Go ahead. Yes. I'm calling on you.
Thank you, Caroline.
You're welcome.
Over the last few weeks, several countries have warned their citizens about travel to the U.S., and the Department of Commerce's own stats know that show that from a lot of countries, the number of visitors is falling. Does the White House have any message for people that might be reconsidering business or tourism travel to the U.S.?
Where did you see that report?
With the statistics coming from the Department of Commerce,
Said what? It's
That-
hard to hear you. Sorry.
that visitors from a lot of countries have fallen in the last 3 months.
I'd have to look at that report to comment on the merits of it. I think most people around the world recognize the United States of America is a great place to do business. It's a beautiful place to visit, and they should certainly come here because it's a much safer country than it was 4 years ago under the previous president.
Of course, not an answer. Not an answer. It's a great place to do business is not an answer to there are countries warning citizens not to come here for their own safety. What do you say? A more reassuring response would have been those citizens have no reason to be concerned whatsoever. None whatsoever. But of course, she answers about something else. How long are these press briefings sustainable? You know, from the point of view of the White House, I think quite a long time, because her performance is certainly good in using the rubric that Trump uses to evaluate how these are, which is she doesn't really directly answer questions. She always defends Trump, etc. From the point of view of the reporters, I don't even know why they bother asking questions at this point, because you're simply not going to get a substantive answer. All right, so we all know Alexa listens to us, recommends products based on our conversations. Meta retargets us based on our browsing and engagement history. Have you wondered what ChatGPT and Claude are up to with your conversations? We feed so much of our information to these AI chatbots, thoughts, dreams, sensitive questions, business ideas. They take the information, tie it to your identity, and they can sell that to third parties and governments. ChatGPT has the former director of the NSA on their board right now. That doesn't feel awesome. It took us a long time to truly understand what social media companies were doing with our data. We don't have to make the same mistake with AI. And that's why I've started using Venice AI, a generative AI platform that is private and permissionless. They don't spy on you. Venice AI won't censor the AI. They have a safe mode, which you can turn off for both text and image generation. Messages are encrypted. Your conversation history is only stored on your browser. I love the Pro plan because I get upgraded features like uploading files, unlimited text prompts. Check it out. If you want to use AI without censorship or fear of handing over your most intimate thoughts to a corporation or the government, go to venice.ai/Pacman and use code Pacman to get 20% off their Pro plan. The link is in the description.